Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Good Friday edition of Friday Reflections. I'm Pastor Scott, one of the pastors here at Trinity Lutheran Church, and thank you for joining this time we have together. Just some reminders before we get into today's Good Friday lesson that we do have Good Friday services at Trinity today at 12:15 outdoors and 7 o'clock this evening indoors in our sanctuary, which also will include our live stream. Following our Good Friday service, we start our prayer vigil, which lasts all the way till Sunday morning before our sunrise service. I noticed there's still spots available. We also sent out some prayer resources, so please do join us with that and make use of those resources as they are needed. Then on Easter Sunday morning, we will have a sunrise service at 6:30 a.m. outdoors in the Labyrinth area, which is at the back of the parking lot. We will have an 8:30 a.m. indoor Easter service in the sanctuary. And then following that, we will have our normal drive-through communion from 10 to 10:30, and then our outdoor Easter service at 11:30 a.m. in the back field. So that is our plan for the next few days. I believe we are already at the capacity number for our indoor service at 8:30. We sent out instructions on that if you still want to come to that service and you're on a waiting list, we'll put you on that waiting list. And that way, if people cancel, we can get you in. But we're going to work and try whatever way we can to accommodate everybody, obviously, on Easter morning. So be patient with us, work with us, and hopefully we'll be able to find solutions for everyone. And then just a quick note that the following Sunday, April 11th, we're going to be doing one service at 11:30 a.m. outdoors on April 11th. The live stream that day will be a pre-recorded service that's coming from our Synod office, with our Synod office leaders doing a whole service, including a sermon. So that will be something special, something different here, different people, different voices, and different messages for that April 11th day. So again, you will have a pre-recorded service available that day, and also one service at 11:30 a.m. We will not have drive-through communion that day, just by nature of people available, things like that. One service at 11:30 a.m. on April 11th. As I said, today is Good Friday, and interestingly enough, 11 years ago this day, our youngest daughter, Ariella, was born. I believe it's the only Good Friday worship I have not led in my years of ordained ministry. But it was a very special day nonetheless. And I remember that day. It started out early in the morning. I think Karen at this time was like almost 2 weeks overdue. So this was the day to induce the labor and have the baby. So we went to the hospital early in the morning. Of course, she got the medication she needed to start the process. And they told us it was probably going to be a while, so we waited and morning turned into afternoon, and afternoon turned into evening, and things started to intensify and that. But eventually the doctors realized that the baby was not going to be able to be born naturally, that they were going to have to do a C-section. And this was getting later into the evening after a long day of labor for my wife and all of us waiting. It's just, now we've got to go down this road, and the anxiety level just raised a little bit higher. I'd never been through this experience before. My wife had never been through this experience before. So now, we're hearing about all this going to happen, C-section and all that. So obviously we go into the labor room and all of this starts and everything's, started up. And then all of a sudden, for some reason, if I remember right, there wasn't enough of the anesthesia. So my wife started to feel the pain of what they were doing, and she sort of blurts out something, and then they're like, oh no, give her more. And all of a sudden they just sort of knock her out. And I'm just sort of sitting there thinking, oh no, what's going on here? Something happened, just a lot of confusion, a lot going on, doctors yelling back and forth at each other, nurses, everything. And it was just, really a trying moment. You're just, all this stuff going on, you're just sort of sitting there and like, what's going on, what's happening, and things like that. And then all of a sudden you heard that voice, you heard that cry. And course, I couldn't see anything because they had a big sheet up to separate what they were doing from what we were able to see. And all of a sudden you hear that cry, that voice, and they came around the corner with Ariel and showed her to me quick, and I looked at her and it was like, oh, there she is. And it was just that moment of new birth, of new life, that amidst all of that pain and angst that my wife and I got to witness, and all of a sudden, you saw the miracle. You saw, what this was all about. And, I share that story only because, as I think about Good Friday, one of the most horrific days in the history of humankind, the Son of God put up on a cross, crucified in one of the most cruel ways that humankind has known death. The Romans had mastered torture and cruelty. And when they did a crucifixion, they didn't do it in the back 40. They did it right out in public for everyone to see. They stripped you naked, put you on a cross, and many times this was a slow death because they wanted people to see this is what happens if you decide to rebel or go against the Roman government. It was a horrific day. We hear that darkness covered the land, lightning, thunder, all of those other earthquakes, all those other kinds of things. But I'm always struck by that one saying by the centurion after Jesus dies. And to me, that's sort of like the life moment on Good Friday. Where that centurion, after seeing all that's happened, looks up at Jesus and says, truly, this was God's Son. And it's almost like right there we start to see the switch that's going to happen as we go from darkness to light, as we go from death to life. And one of the beautiful things I found out about God, and Good Friday teaches us this, is that God can even take our darkest moments, our worst moments, the moments when we're the lowest, and turn them into new life. And that our God is a God that just always seems to bring life out of brokenness. I'm reminded of a reading we had just a few weeks ago in worship from John 20, where it says, Jesus said, very truly I tell you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains just a single grain. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. And I've mentioned this before, throughout the Bible, there's this whole sense of dying and rising, dying and rising. And not only can God take difficult times and turn them into something good, but also we find throughout the Bible is that when we're able to die to ourselves and look beyond ourselves to something bigger, to God and to other people and to community, that's where we start to find new life. If all we do is live for ourselves, we lose out on so much in life. But when we're able to look beyond ourselves, and we're able to work with others, even though we may not always agree, even though we may not always have the same opinions or political persuasions and things like that, when we are able to look beyond ourselves to something bigger, to a God that is so much bigger than these things, to a God whose love is so much more powerful than the things that hold us down, that when we're able to die to ourselves and look to that's where we live. And then we can learn how to live and share God's love with each other. I know that Easter's a lot more fun than Good Friday. And usually our worship attendance and everything is always much higher on Easter. It's more celebratory, it's more life-giving in that than on Good Friday. But we always have to remember that Good Friday is about life. Jesus entered into our brokenness. Jesus took on the brokenness of this world. He didn't skirt that. He didn't walk around it. He got right into it. And in doing so, he ended up on a cross. Again, crucified, one of the worst forms of torture and death known to humankind in history. But also out of that, he came and brought new life on Easter Day. And I know that we're all looking forward to that today because we've been living with Good Friday for a long time now. We've been living with the effects of Good Friday for a long time now. The pandemic, our brokenness, our political angst, racial divide, all of those things, that are part of the brokenness of our sinfulness and our fall from God. God comes down into that and says, hey folks, let me take that, let me work with that, and let's bring some life out of it. Let's bring some new life out of it. That is the beauty of Good Friday and Easter. dying, and arising. That God enters into our lives, even at the lowest moments, and can bring new life. That is the joy we have. That is the hope we have. That is what keeps us going in our lives of faith. So just as in the midst of a lot of confusion and angst and fear, that new life of Ariel and Joe Sessler came 11 years ago today, so each and every day God comes to us to bring help, reconciliation, peace, learning, so that we can continue to grow and find new life in our lives of faith. God's blessings to all of you during this Good Friday and Easter. Again, my hope and prayer is, especially this year, with all that's going on, that the love and the power of God will find its way into your life in some new and significant way. God's blessings to you all.